Yoga. Greta and I actually just worked today a little bit on our workshop that we're having on the 18th, on Sunday the 18th, which is a beginner's workshop. Woo! So I'm all like informationed up on yin right now, and so I feel like talking. Let me share my screen. Uh-oh, where am I looking? Well, today as you guys know, in every class, we kind of pick a subject. And today is our sciatica class that we designed for people who are experiencing sciatic pain or compression of the sciatic nerve. And yin is a really wonderful complement to this impingement because when we're practicing yin, we are really trying to get into these deeper muscle tissues and these deeper fascias and these, parts of the joint capsule that only reveal themselves when you use long and gentle pressure to access them. If we're doing a vinyasa practice, we're not going to reach these particular muscles. We're going to instead activate other muscles or other parts of the muscle that are kind of told to get us into this position. But when we're in yin and we're holding for time, we can access the muscles that aren't as flexible, and even down to like the nerve and the joint. So anyway, sciatica. Sciatica is the pressure that a muscle puts on the sciatic nerve, or just pressure in general on the sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve is formed from your lumbar spine beginning at L4. So if you find your hip bone, it's kind of right above that. And it goes down into the sacrum. And this is where the sciatic nerve connects to the spinal cord. So this is where it connects to send information straight to the brain. When it's being compressed, it sends that information to the brain saying, I'm being compressed, I need help. And that's what sends pain through the body. So it will cause pain and weakness along the nerve root. So the nerve root starts kind of in, the lower back, right up the lumbar spine into the sacrum, going through the glutes and down the hamstrings and even into the adductors, your kind of inside leg. It also, in cases that are a little more serious, can cause pain in the back of the knee crease and in the front of the shin. It's the largest nerve in the body, measuring about 3/4 of an inch, which is roughly the skinny part of your wrist. So if you turn your wrist kind of like a karate chop motion, you take that skinny part, that's about as big as the sciatic nerve, which is kind of huge. Sciatica can also be caused by piriformis syndrome, which we see in this next slide. The piriformis muscle is this big rotator of the hip, and it goes right over the sciatic nerve. So when it's tight, it presses up against that nerve and sends just nerve reactions down the leg. So in our practice today, we are going to really work that piriformis muscle with some reclined pigeon. We're also going to work into our hamstrings with the Paschimottanasana forward fold. So these will kind of get into those deeper fascias that I talked about in the beginning that surround the sciatic nerve. Bring some pressure off of that and get that kind of nerve root flowing as it should.
Awesome. Thanks, Veronica. I know so much more about sciatica now. I'm so grateful for your insight. So before we get into the yin portion, at least the movement portion of class, find a comfortable seat and take a moment to feel the contact that you're making with the ground, be it on a cushion or a mat or something rolled up. Feel where there is heaviness, maybe even try to tap into to center. And then also try to find length in the spine, relax your shoulders down, and release tension that you may be carrying with you. If it's in the feet, if it's in the belly, if it's in your forehead, letting that go. And we'll do 1 clearing breath and 3 rounds of Om. Inhale in through the nose. And exhale, HA out of your mouth, release. And this time, prepare for Om. Inhale. Inhale, take a deep breath in. And exhale, release the breath out. And we're gonna start in honestly, it's one of my favorite poses. Although I might say that too often. I might have too many favorites. But sleeping baby or napping infant, it looks like spider person crawling up a building, or Spider-Man, whatever, coming onto the belly. And then bend your right knee. Bring the left cheek to the mat and settle. If you get down here and you're like, hey, I kind of want some support, you are more than welcome to add support under your chest. Maybe you need a little support under your knee. Just taking a moment to connect to the ground. And just like we did before we started our Om, feeling where there is space in between you and the floor, feeling where you're making contact. Just noticing the architecture of your body, your physical form. And acknowledging the transition into your practice. I'm going to start my timer so we aren't here forever. And I'm going to talk about Yin, which everyone here is familiar with. Give me 1 second to start the timer. Boop. Okay, cool. And like Veronica was saying, we were planning our workshop today, and we had the time to visit the web that has no weaver, Understanding Chinese Medicine. And I was going to read from it just for some fresh insight. I feel like I almost say the same thing verbatim every week, and it's really good to return back to text and other influences to get fresh ideas. So Yin and Yang theory, and I'm not going to read a lot from it. The logic underlying Chinese medical theory, a logic that assumes that a pair can be understood only in its relation to the whole. Yin-Yang theory is based in the philosophical construct of 2 polar complements called yin and yang. These complementary opposites are neither forces nor material entities, nor are they mythical concepts that transcend rationality. Rather, they are convenient labels used to describe how things function in relation to each other and to the universe. They are used to explain the continuous process of natural change. In this system of thought, all things are seen as parts of a whole. No entity can ever be isolated from its relationship to other entities. No thing can exist in and of itself. Fixed essences are abstractions. There are no absolutes. Yin and Yang must necessarily contain within themselves the possibility of opposition and change. The character for yin originally meant the shady side of a slope. It is associated with such qualities of cold, rest, responsiveness, passivity, darkness, interiority, downwardness, inwardness, tranquility, and quiescence. In the end, completion and realized fruition. The original meaning of yang was the sunny side of the slope. The term implies brightness and is part of one common Chinese expression for the sun. Yang is associated with qualities such as heat, stimulation, movement, activity, light, excitement, upwardness, outwardness, beginnings, and dynamic potential. And so just kind of using what you already know and adding to it with this insight, and even just like a different expression of what we already know, but hearing it from another perspective can be really nice. This is the halfway point. And I'm just gonna go through the three tattvas, the three principles of yin really quick. We meet our gentle edge and we make that edge sustainable. We do that by adding props. We do that by pulling our edge back and really being honest with the message we're engaging with our bodies with. If the body is giving you sharp stabbing sensations, pull the edge back. I really have found that for much of my life, externally, it's kind of just like, oh, you're in pain, just like get through this. You've got this. Like that's very much in the world that we live in. And that is not the practice we're cultivating here. So trying to steer away from that. Finding the gentle edge, being still, and stillness and quiet is something I've grown to love over time. But I know when I initially tried meditating and tried yin practices, quiet was really hard for me because my mind just like charged up. It was active, it was planning, it fantasized, it dwelled, did all the things that the mind will do. And that's what the mind is here to do. It's here to think, and we should love that it does that because it helps us navigate through the world. But using each pose, and when we do have moments of quiet and really trying to cultivate that stillness and perhaps quiescence, which is my word of the day, or kind of a sense of rest or regeneration. And then lastly, we hold for time. We're coming up on like the last 30 seconds here actually of this hold. Veronica and I keep track of time on our phones. We give a halfway mark, we give a final minute. And this is simply so you can more surrender into the pose. You don't have to worry about, oh, how long are we gonna be here? We're covering the time element, so you don't have to think about that. And then lastly, just turning towards yourself with compassion and kindness and kind of an investigative curiosity. I think that yin kind of has a strong correlation to a mindfulness practice. And so there's always opportunity to apply that. And I think this is a great time to do that, especially with these like mini meditations. You kind of come in and you come out, incorporating the transitions too, trying to be mindful there. That's something I'm trying to work with just in my day-to-day existence. And I said I was going to keep it short, but I guess I filled up the whole 5 minutes. So you can slowly begin to direct the right leg back towards the left and shift onto the other side. Bend the left knee, switch your cheeks out, and get situated on this side. And just like you did on the other, settle, come into the pose. And something I've been trying to do with each of my practices, just because honestly coming to the mat is sometimes a struggle, especially with the Zoom world, is to leave a little bit of a moment right now just for appreciation and gratitude for having this time to practice, and leaving it at that. Just keep it very simple. And I think for the rest of the time on this side, just giving yourself the time to listen and be with self. And this is the halfway point. And the final minute. And gently, intentionally begin to move your right leg back toward center. Bring the head back towards center. And just gently come up into a sphinx with the forearms down. And Veronica is going to direct us into our next pose from here.
Thanks, Greta. Awesome. All right, coming out of our poses, taking our time, we're actually going to go ahead and flip over onto our backs. So from our backs, we want to kind of create a neutral spine and try to relax this. Sometimes the lower back likes to really arch here. Try to find a way to relax it to the mat, whether it be shifting your legs back and forth to loosen it up. And then go ahead to bringing your legs out long. From here, we're going to go into what's called banana asana. So we're going to start by stretching our right side, which means bringing our body to the left. So I like to start with my legs, and you simply kind of walk them over to the left side of the mat until you meet your point of resistance. Then with your arms, walk those over to the left till they meet their point of resistance. And from here, you're going to get this really long bend through the side body, even going into the side of the leg and the front of the hip. If you want to increase this stretch, you can take your right ankle and plop it over the left foot, kind of almost like, crossing your legs. And you can also take your left hand and pull your right hand over to create more of a stretch underneath the shoulders. Now I'll start my timer. We're not in here long, though this is a nice pose to be in for a long time. If you do have the time, we're going to be here for 3 minutes, but sometimes a 5-minute banana really opens up the ribs in a whole new way. This is our halfway point. You can take this as a moment to go deeper into the pose, maybe moving just a little inch to the left. Or you could choose to remain still and reassess your edge, maybe come out a little. It's all up to you. Right. Moving slowly, kind of come out the way you came in. So move your hands back to the center of the mat, maybe slowly shifting your upper shoulders and back to releasing the legs and bringing them to the mat. And then kind of reset, legs side to side. Maybe if you want to do a bridge to release the lower back. When you're done, bring the legs out long and we'll go over and do the other side. So begin by moving the feet towards the right side of the mat, creating that stretch in the left side body, arms overhead. Those move over to the right, left arm reaching over and finding a relaxed position. You can take your left leg, cross it over the right for an extra stretch in the side body. Breathe into your ribs. Expanding them and relaxing them. This is our halfway point. I always am so tempted to fidget in this pose. And I remember back when we did Yin at the Vajra, Emily would always say, if you have the urge to move or scratch an itch or fix your hair, see if you can give it 3 breaths. And after those 3 breaths, you still need to scratch that itch. Maybe you should. But usually in about 3 breaths, that, desire and that want goes away. You realize you can hold this stillness for just a little bit longer. Final 30 seconds. All right, go ahead and release this pose, moving the arms back, walking the feet back to the center of the mat, and releasing the lower back, arms back to our sides, and coming back to neutral. Ooh. I haven't done banana in a while. It's a really awesome pose for not only our muscles, but also our lungs that press up against our ribs, and our ovaries and our digestive system, especially in our lower part of our body. It opens up a lot of meridians through that. So great pose. We're going to remain on our backs for this next section, and we're going to go into our reclined pigeon. So coming to the back, you want to have your feet flat on the mat, knees up. We're going to start with our right side. So we take the right ankle and we put it over the right thigh. Now from here, we can add modifications. So we can just simply put a block under our right foot, and by pressing out on the right knee, block under the left foot, by pressing out on the right knee, we could find that rotation. Or what we can do is we can thread our hands through this little hole that the legs make and grab behind the left, either shin or thigh, and kind of pull in. Now we're not going to do an active pull because this is yin. Instead, we're just going to use our hands. If you want to use a strap and go around the front and tie it that way, this works too, and you can relax your shoulders on the back of the mat with this. Remember, we don't want anything pinching or that hurts too much. So if it is pinching, try to see if we could find a way to come out just a Okay, everyone's still in the pose. I have my internet clocked out. I saw Ashley checking. Thanks, Ashley. Because I was actually, as I got cut off, I was talking about how wonderful your class was the other night, and how much I really enjoyed practicing yin and story time. So we're about at our halfway point here in this pose, even with that break. And I decided to read a little bit from the Tao Te Ching, Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu, who is one of the most prolific and well-known writers in Taoism. And Yin Yoga's lineage goes back to Taoism and this idea of yin and yang, how all things are equal and integrated and connected with one another. So I decided to kind of pick one of my favorites. And also, when we're reading this older text, they use a lot of pronouns that I wouldn't choose to use myself. So I'm going to change the pronouns to they, them as I read. So this is Article 22. Bend and you will be whole. Curl and you will be straight. Keep empty and you will be filled. Grow old and you will be renewed. Have little and you will gain. Have much and you will be confused. Therefore, the sage embraces the one and becomes a pattern to all under heaven. They do not make a show of themselves, hence they shine. They do not justify themselves, hence they become known. They do not boast their ability, hence they get credit. They do not brandish their success, and hence they will endure. They do not compete with anyone, hence no one can compete with them. Indeed, the ancient saying, bend and you will remain whole, is no idle word. If you have really attained wholeness, everything will flock to you. All right, go ahead and release that hold, bringing the left foot back down to the mat, releasing the right leg from on top of the left. Maybe you want to bring both legs in, give yourself a hug, and roll on the spine. The movements in between are just as important. And then we'll move on to our left side. So keeping the right leg planted, the right foot planted, bring the left ankle over the left thigh. If this is enough, stay here, or we can move in further by threading our hands through the hole and grabbing for either the right shin or the back of the right leg. We want this to be gentle and still really feel that nice external rotation of the femur bone and the hip, and bringing a good stretch to our glutes and releasing some things in our lower back. I'll reset the timer and I will keep reading. One on tiptoe cannot stand. One astride cannot walk. One who displays themselves does not shine, and one who justifies themselves has no glory. One who boasts of their own ability has no merit, and one who parades their own success will not endure. In the Tao, these things are called the unwanted food and extraneous growths. which are loathed by all things. Hence, the person of the Tao does not set their heart upon those things. There is something undefined and yet complete in itself, born before heaven and earth. Silent and boundless, standing alone without change, yet pervading all without fail, it may be regarded as the mother of the world. I do not know it by name, and I style it as the Tao. And in the great absence of a better word, I call it the Great, or the universe. To be great is to go on. To be great is to be far. To be great is to go on, and to go on is to be far. To be far is to return. Hence, Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great. Man follows the ways of the earth follows the ways of heaven, and heaven follows the way of the Tao. The Tao follows its own ways. This is our halfway point. The movement of the Tao consists in returning. The use of the Tao consists in softness. All things under heaven are born of the corporal, and the corporal is born of the incorporeal. The bright way looks dim, the progressive way looks retrograde. The smooth way looks rugged. High virtue looks like an abyss. Great whiteness looks spotted. Abundant virtue looks deficient. Established virtue looks shabby. Solid virtue looks as though melted. Great squareness has no corners. Great talents ripen late. Great sound is silent, and great form is shapeless. The Tao is hidden and nameless, yet it alone knows how to render help and to fulfill. Right. And we are at the last seconds of this pose. And over the course of the next couple breaths, begin to plan your exit, whether that be releasing the foot back onto the ground, rolling out the ankles, loosening up the hips to relax back onto the ground. Like the Tao says, everything in between is fulfilling as well. I'll pass it off to Greta.
Awesome. Thank you, Veronica. And slowly make your way into a seat. We are going to practice Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold, and in Yin they call it caterpillar. So finding a comfortable seat, and if you'd like to, it can be really nice to roll the back of your mat up or to find something to sit on to help the pelvic bowl tilt down. Before you do that, you might want to situate a pillow nearby if you're going to use it to support your chest when you fold. Extending the legs out long. And then folding forward. And when you fold, if you're just like, man, I feel just like a stiff back here, Bend your knees, place something underneath them. You can experiment with height. And then once the knees are bent, oftentimes we're more able to experience the sensation of folding. I'm going to go ahead and set my timer. And also just noticing the flexion, the curvature in your spine, the rounding of the spine. We're going to be in this hold for 5 minutes, and then we're going to switch to supported bridge, and the spine's going to be kind of in the opposite direction. So just taking some time right now to travel with your awareness, both on the front side of your body, the back side, and also on the side. So really feeling your experience three-dimensionally and noticing if there's anywhere where you can release tension, noticing if there's any dull, achy sensations or anything that kind of spotlights your attention. And if the mind does become overwhelmingly talkative and wandery, finding something to focus your awareness on. And I'm going to recommend today just focusing on the ribs and feeling the breath moving in the rib cage and the muscles in between, the intercostal muscles. Just noticing that slight expansion and contraction. Really subtle. And this is the halfway point. And we're at the final minute marker. And over the next 5 breaths, or 3 breaths, begin to unfurl your spine. Lift your head, lift your torso. Are you going to use the muscles in your abdominal region to lift? Are you going to press the hands to lift? Just noticing how you transition. And then what do you crave once you get out of the pose? Maybe it's kind of like a shimmy. Perhaps you need to bounce the legs, remove props out of the way, doing what the body craves. And from here, we'll transition into supported bridge. Come to lay on your back. Bring a block with you if you have one. If not, a book and a blanket on top can work really well, or a rolled up towel can also work in this pose. So getting creative with what you have in your apartment, in and around you. Coming to be on the ground, feet are on the ground. And place the block at the sacrum, the low part of the back. You can experiment with height. Maybe you have it on the lowest setting. Maybe you put it on the middle setting. Maybe you add, if you have a block, just something ever so slightly to get it a little bit higher. Maybe the middle setting isn't quite enough. So just experimenting with where you're at in the practice. And then releasing tension. Releasing tension from the glutes. And letting the muscles be passive here. And feeling the expansion in your chest. And feeling the body as a vessel, as a container. While we're in supported bridge, since we're kind of on a reading theme, and since we did so much prep today and studying of yin and Chinese medicine, something that we're not going to have time to get to in the workshop, but I found it was nice to revisit, was the fundamental concept of qi. Qi is not so much a force added to lifeless matter, but the state of being of any phenomena. For the Chinese, qi is the pulsation of the cosmos itself. Qi is not some primordial, immutable material, nor is it merely vital energy. Qi is somewhere in between, a kind of matter on the verge of becoming energy, or energy at the point of materializing. Qi is the thread connecting all beings. And without qi, there would be no yin and no yang. And the qi I wanted to talk about was the qi of the chest, or ancestral qi. The qi gathers in the chest where it forms a sea of qi. This qi collects in the chest, goes out to the throat, connects with the heart and vessels, and moves respiration. Its main function is to aid and regulate rhythmic movement of respiration and heartbeat, so it is intimately connected with the lungs and the heart. The relative strength and evenness of respiration, of the voice, the heartbeat, and the movement of blood are all related to the chi of the chest. Similar to what we were doing with our focus on the rib breathing, trying to energetically sense what is going on in that region. And this is the halfway point. Final minute. Begin to decide how you're going to transition out of the pose. Initiate that movement. Maybe press the feet into the ground to move the block or books out of the way. Let the hips sink down and take the free movement that your body's asking for. I'm being called to draw the knees in towards my chest. Maybe you oscillate the thigh in the hip socket or the femur. Maybe trying to sense the piriformis that Veronica talked about at the beginning of class. Trying to sense where the sciatic nerve is running. We'll seal class off with some twisting. And this is the class where we do encourage you use a scarf or a strap or a blanket. And I apologize for not mentioning that at the beginning of class, but right now, if you need to, go grab that object, or you can just do the twist. We're going to be doing a twist on both sides. So grabbing the strap or scarf, and we'll start laying on the back. This is a Supta Padangusthasana variation, which I love thinking about Padangusthasana on your back, Supta. Extend the right leg up towards the ceiling and bend the right knee. Swoop that strap around the arch of your foot. Get it situated, perhaps maybe even on both sides. And then extend the right leg up towards the ceiling. You You can flex the foot, point the foot. Feel what that sensation feels like. Maybe you even roll the ankle. That might feel nice. And then from here, with the left hand, draw the right leg towards the left side of your body. So it's coming out to the left side. And you can take a moment to even put your right hand on top of your ribs so you can feel the twisting sensation going on in the torso, in the chest. Feel the soft part of the belly. What does that feel like to twist there? Right arm can go out like half of a T. Gaze can be up. Gaze can also be directed towards your fingertips. And once the foot is down on the left side, the right foot is down on the left side, you can also experiment with where the foot lands. If the foot doesn't touch down all the way, you can put a block or some sort of support underneath the foot. And I'm going to go ahead and set our timer. Notice when you're in quiet what your attention is attracted to. There might be an external sound that draws you up and out. There might be a thought form surfacing in the field of your awareness. Notice that thing and don't judge it. Don't try to fix anything. Mind is going to think. It's what it's here to do. We're at the halfway mark. This is the final minute. Noticing too at the end of the practice if your experience with quiet shifts. There's some anticipation post class or anticipation even for the pose to end and redirect to the other side, and even wondering like why, at least in my practice, like why it is I feel the need to anticipate the next thing, not being able to be present, and then again not judging myself for having that thought. The right arm is extended. Go ahead and bring it down back onto the strap and use it to lift the right leg back up. Bring it back up and release. Release the strap, release the foot. Shift your pelvis back to neutral, maybe windshield wiper the legs. Bend the left foot, wrap the strap around the arch of the foot, and extend the left leg up. You can experiment here as well. The ankle or flexion and extension of the foot. From here, let the left leg fall towards the right side, navigating any household objects or plants that may be in the way. Extend the left arm out like half of a T. You can gaze up or you can direct your focus towards the left side. And the intention here is to get into a supine twist, to twist the spine, feeling that rinsing sensation. And if you want to include the cervical spine, if you want to include the neck, if it enhances your practice, definitely look towards the left. If it's going to cause distraction or tension, look up. It may be different from day to day. This is the halfway point. And final minute. with the outstretched arm, the left arm, bring it back to the right side, connect back to your strap or scarf, lift the left foot back up, come back to center, release the strap, release your foot down, and take any free movement you need as a form of release. Maybe there's something you didn't take after another pose or something you're kind of craving really quick. Draw the knees in towards your chest, coming into a cannonball shape, Apanasana. And then release into Shavasana, final rest. Let the limbs come down. Take up as much space as you need. It doesn't have to be the size of your manufactured mat. Even if you have grown to very fond of the mat that you're practicing on. And coming into Shavasana, final rest. The end of this cycle, I will guide you up when it is time to come up and out of the practice. We have carved enough time here for a nice Shavasana. We talked a lot about meridian theory and Chinese medicine and the concepts of yin and yang. And in this whole system, there's a lot of observation of patterns and a lot of observation of cycles and how everything is interconnected, noticing relationships and just being attuned with that. And using those words as anchors to kind of latch onto the body as a vessel, letting that anchor sink down and just be with that for the rest of the class. begin to invite movement back into your body. Notice where your attention is immediately drawn to. Move that first. Maybe it's your shoulders, maybe it's your toes. The movement can start out super small, and then it ripples to become more expansive. Bring the arms up overhead like you're stretching in the morning. Draw the knees in towards your chest. And decide if you want to roll over onto the left or the right side. The left being associated with more yin qualities and the right with more yang qualities, more solar qualities. Using the bicep like a pillow, coming into this fetal position and honoring the lineage of this practice. Clearly today we got into the Chinese medicine, meridian theory, Taoist side of things, really honoring that lineage and the many teachers. I've definitely studied yoga philosophy more than I have this theory, but it is really fascinating and there's a lot to be learned from it. It's another tool to observe the world with. Also honoring our yoga tradition with its roots in India. And lastly, honoring the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, of the Duwamish people, the land that I occupy in Seattle, Washington, and Veronica out of Brooklyn, the unceded ancestral lands of the Lapade, Canarsie, and Rockaway people. And gently begin to press yourself up to a seat. And we'll meet with hands at heart center. If that feels authentic to you, finding these complementary oppositions and where they come together at the heart space. Bringing hands from heart center to third eye, strengthening the connection between your heart and your mind, compassion and intuition. Bowing forward to seal in your practice, honoring the whole self, both the luminous and shadowy aspects, peace, and thank you. Thank you for being here with us tonight. It's always appreciated. This class has definitely been one of the highlights of